Joining me is Andrew Clennell, Sky News Political Editor. Andrew Clennell, thank you for joining me. Anthony Albanese had another shocker today, this time not knowing his policy on the massive National Insurance Disability Scheme. How damaging was that?
I think it is pretty damaging. I think it lends itself to the narrative that he's not on top of detail. When I was door knocking with the candidate in the electorate of Swan, people said they didn't like Scott Morrison, but Anthony Albanese needed to brush up. However, despite these mistakes, if he doesn't make too many, he could still win the election. Anastasia Palaszczuk, 3 days out from defeating Campbell Newman, couldn't name the GST rate. I thought she was gone. She wasn't. But this does not help him as he goes forward. And he wants to be careful. He isn't just remembered for this, for being the guy who's a bit light on detail. These debates on Sunday and Wednesday on channels 9 and 7 respectively shape is pretty critical now. Albanese's got to get through them in a pretty flawless way, and then he's still in front, I think. I think a 6-point plan, you get a few more marks from the public than you do on national unemployment rate, which you should know. But again, it wasn't helpful that he didn't know. He then nailed the aged care 5-point plan. But goodness me, Andrew, why are politicians doing 5 and 6 and 10-point plans? Don't they learn from the past? Very hard to remember 5 points. I'm flat out remembering 3 half the time.
Whenever someone's... I know, that's exactly correct. Whenever someone starts by saying, look, I've got three things to say about that, you think, this is going to take a long time. And the second is, are you going to remember the third? Why would you set yourself up? But,
you know when I say that, Andrew, when I say that, I've said it on air, and the third I sort of just grab. I almost forget the third. It's kind of, maybe the human brain's not meant to remember 5 things at once. I don't know. But there's no excuse for it. I mean,
maybe the male brain.
Apart from anything else, he should have had it in front of him. He's got this huge folder after the first day, Gaff. You think he would have just had it there.
Well, the fact that he fumbled, and grabbed the folder and was shuffling through the papers suggests that for him, he thought it was something. He couldn't fudge his way out of it, he couldn't dismiss it as an unimportant gotcha or anything like that. That's the point here. There were 2 debates today, Andrew, both very interesting. I've never seen so many debates in an election, actually. This one, the first, was between the Defence Minister, Peter Dutton, who I think is really the rising star of the Liberals, and Labor's spokesman, Brendan O'Connor. For me, the most interesting exchange was, again, the response to your question. You've asked so many. You must be in a competition. Ask the best questions of the campaign. Asking Peter Dutton if he still stood by his claim in Parliament that the Chinese Communist Party was barracking for Labor to win. Here's some of the response.
Now, there's no doubt in my mind that the Chinese Communist Party would like to see a change of government at the 21 May election. No question at all. And I think there's evidence of that on the WeChat activity, which is a Communist Party dominated and influenced platform, the interference with the Prime Minister's own WeChat page there, the way in which editors of Chinese language newspapers in our country have been lent on, I think is further evidence, and other elements obviously that I can't go into publicly. So I stand by that statement, believe it very strongly.
We know China has changed. We know it's now more assertive, more aggressive, not in this country's interest for a political party to attack the other major political party on the basis of appeasing China, particularly when it's untrue.
Peter Dutton was most certainly not backing down from comments that got him a lot of criticism at the time. What did you make of the argument today?
Well, Peter Dutton really mounted the fear campaign on Labor, said don't believe them, they'll let the boats back in, they'll spend less on defence, they'll be friendlier towards Xi Jinping and get sucked in by him. Labor argues vehemently that that's not the case. But Dutton was so fierce, he kind of reminded me of Paul Keating. He probably won't like me saying that, but I thought it was one of the fiercest performances since Keating was around, basically. He takes no prisoners, Peter Dutton, does he? He's a very strong performer for the government.
Look, I totally agree with you. So I've remarked myself on the how we can liken him to Paul Keating's approach. I think he's the one that in Parliament Labor fears most when he gets on his feet. And I love this smackdown today of the Guardian in Australia. Whack, whack, whack. The other debate today was between Treasurer Josh Frydenberg and his main challenger in his seat of Kooyong, Monique Ryan, one of the so-called climate independents, financed and coached by Simon Holmes à Court, who could hold the balance of power after the election. Now, Ryan is a former Labor Party member, now claiming to be a political clean skin, even a kind of liberal in a sense, who hasn't yet decided whether he should back Labor or the Liberals to form government if it came down to her. But she said two things today, Andrew, which I thought were a big giveaway and a warning. Here she is on her boat people policy to the left of Labor's, and also on a China policy, again, to the left of Labor's. Have a listen.
I would end offshore detention for refugees. We need to increase our refugee intake by at least 50%. China is our biggest trade partner, and the relationship with our biggest trade partner should be treated with respect and sensitivity, not with macho breast-beating belligerence.
So if a climate independent like Ryan does end up with a balance of power after the election, what do you think will happen? Not just in who they will choose, because clearly she's pro-Labor, but how that would affect the policies of a Labor government?
I think all of us have to hope against a hung parliament, Andrew. I think that's the worst possible result. And if Anthony Albanese keeps stuffing up, it's probably quite likely. That's if he doesn't lose. I think it's looking pretty hard for the coalition to win majority. I know a lot can change in 2 weeks, but Labor could win minority or majority. And it would be dreadful. We saw the carbon tax before and other more radical policies because of the independents in the Gillard time. That didn't actually work for the Labor government. And we're going to see bigger action on climate change and a federal ICAC, it seems. If the independents have any say, I know Labor promises a federal ICAC. But it's intriguing, those comments on refugees, isn't it? I mean, that would send a shiver up some Labor spines, I reckon.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely correct. What will they have to bargain with Ryan to get things through Parliament? That's the big question, if she makes it, of course. Andrew Clennell, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.